Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, well, we're doing just that, diving deep into some excerpts from a document called Passion for Print. The original script is Axt DTL FXAGT. We're basically mining for insights here.
Exactly. Think of it like a collection of unfiltered snapshots. You get the author's thoughts, their observations, bits of conversation, real emotional reactions. It's kind of like peeking into someone's private scrapbook.
Yeah, and our goal here is to sort of sift through these entries, which might seem a bit random at first, and pull out the main themes, the key takeaways. We want to connect the dots for you, give you a clearer picture of the author's inner world.
And what I found really interesting right off the bat was the context. The author, XADTL plus XA.GT, mentions being a police officer but also aspiring to be a writer, studying for a BA.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that combination, law enforcement and literary ambition, it creates this intriguing tension from the get-go, doesn't it?
It really does. It makes you lean in a bit, wonder what kind of perspective they'll bring.
Okay, so let's unpack that very first reflection. The author talks about how stories, they start inside, right? Thoughts, feelings, looking for a way out through language.
Mm-hmm.
There's this really nice image of finding words and sentences just taking shape on their own. It sounds very natural, very organic. What strikes you about that?
What's fascinating is this idea that the thoughts and feelings almost have their own energy.
Right.
They're seeking expression. The author says, as nature provides, all feels natural. It points to this really basic drive to articulate what's going on inside.
Right.
It reminds you that everything we read, every story, it starts from something deeply personal, often unspoken. And then there's that gratitude bit, being thankful for people who listen and connect.
Yeah.
That really highlights our need to be understood, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Then the author shifts to something really fundamental, breath. Breathing directly to life. First breath, last breath. This is breath and this is life. It's so simple, but wow. It is profound in its simplicity. And then they describe life fading when breath is restricted. No emotions, no thoughts, not even dreams. It just powerfully underscores how tied our physical selves are to our emotional, our mental states.
We just take it for granted, don't we? Breathing.
Totally. That constant in and out, it's the bedrock of our whole experience.
And after that, the significance of the first message of birth. The author calls their own first message auspicious, saying it gave energy, a sense of care. Almost motherly. That's quite an image. What's the takeaway there, do you think?
That idea that our very first interactions can kind of set the stage, it's incredibly resonant. It suggests that early communication, maybe even nonverbal, establishes a sense of security, or perhaps it plants the seed for that lifelong longing for connection. It makes you think about those really early moments and how they might ripple outwards, affecting how we see the world, how we approach relationships later on.
Okay, then the tone changes a bit. We get into the messy parts of relationships, especially now, in the digital age. There's this real hesitation to call someone from a number they know because of all the history attached. Why can a phone number carry so much baggage?
It really shows how our digital lives get tangled up with our relationship histories, doesn't it? A known number isn't just digits anymore. It's like a container for past talks, unspoken stuff, maybe old arguments or hurts.
Yeah.
So that hesitation, it speaks volumes about the anxiety lurking in our digital interactions. Every call, every text, it can feel weighted down by everything that came before.
Which leads right into this paradox. Longing for connection, but finding it so hard to actually connect. The author sees someone they care about working, wants to interrupt, but gives them a book instead. A silent gesture. What do you make of that?
Well, the silence is the key thing there, the ambiguity. We don't know the book. We don't know the real intention behind it. It just magnifies how easily things can be misunderstood or how much emotion can remain unsaid. It shows how sometimes when talking feels too hard, we use these indirect ways, hoping the message gets across, but also risking it getting totally lost.
And then comes that really raw pain, unreturned calls, unread messages, that feeling of being ignored or worse, being annoying. Becomes a cycle, doesn't it? Reaching out, feeling shut down.
Oh, that cycle is brutal. It can really hammer your self-worth. In this age of instant communication or the expectation of it, not getting a response can hit some deep nerves about where you stand with someone.
Yeah.
Those questions the author asks, am I a ghost? Is it my fault? They capture that vulnerability so well. It just shows how much we often rely on that external nod, that validation in our relationships.
The emotion really ramps up then, dealing with love, jealousy, the fear of loss. There's this powerful desire just to be close, to really understand someone's inner world. Why is that yearning for intimacy so strong?
It's just fundamental, isn't it? That drive to be truly seen, understood, connected, wanting to know someone's inner world, it reflects that deep need for closeness and also the vulnerability of wanting to share your own inner stuff in return.
The author makes this observation. Love is successful only when a girl loves her boy very much. If it's the opposite, it's just an illusion. That's quite a statement. What are your thoughts on that idea of reciprocity?
Yeah, that's a very specific viewpoint. Maybe a bit idealistic. Of course, mutual feeling is vital for a healthy relationship, but love, it shows up in so many ways.
Sure.
People express it differently, feel it differently, and the balance can shift, defining it by very much and demanding perfect reciprocity all the time. Well, reality is often messier than that.
And then we see how tiny things, like a missed call, can just set off this intense anger, these internal arguments. Why do these little digital things sometimes provoke such huge reactions?
Often it's not really about the missed call itself, is it? It's more like a trigger. It pokes at deeper insecurities, maybe fears about the relationship itself.
Like not being important.
Exactly, like being overlooked, not prioritized. And that interpretation fuels the internal drama, the big emotional flare-up. It's what the missed call symbolizes, not the call itself.
Following that, there's this deep sense of longing, searching after what feels like a loss. And it's described almost like physical pain. How does emotional pain get so physical?
The mind-body connection is just incredibly powerful. Intense emotional pain, like grief or heartbreak, can actually light up the same parts of the brain as physical injury.
Really?
Yeah, so you get real physical symptoms, chest tightness, stomach issues, fatigue, headaches. It's a stark reminder that feelings aren't just in our heads, they live in our bodies too.
Even while going through all this, the author weaves in these quick societal observations, mentioning public figures, noting how beautiful dreams fade so fast. Why mix the big picture with such personal stuff?
I think it shows that even when you're consumed by personal pain, you're still aware of the world outside. These little observations, they provide maybe a bit of contrast or perspective. That line about beautiful dreams fading fast, it feels particularly poignant, like a comment on how fleeting good moments can be, whether personal or, societal.
And there's this desire, mentioned, to actually record observations on everything: society, politics, relationships, nature. A real impulse to document. What does that tell us?
It suggests a need to make sense of things, doesn't it? To find patterns, maybe meaning, in both the personal chaos and the wider world. It points to an analytical mind, someone trying to understand the complexities of it all.
Yeah, wanting to categorize experience.
Right. And the sheer breadth of topics shows a real engagement with the world, even amidst all the internal struggle.
Interestingly, there's this encounter with police officers that makes the author feel uneasy, given their own job. That adds a layer. What could that unease mean?
That's a tricky one. Being an officer themselves. Maybe it's a heightened awareness of power dynamics, or perhaps a personal anxiety tied to their role within that system.
Or just questioning things.
Could be a fleeting moment of thinking about their own position, about authority in general. It's complex.
The focus then shifts to something physical, a toothache, but it gets tangled up with the emotional pain, like the toothache makes the heartache worse. Have you seen that happen?
Oh, absolutely. When you're already feeling low or stressed, even minor physical pain can feel way worse. Your emotional state literally lowers your pain threshold.
And vice versa.
And vice versa. Physical pain can definitely make anxiety or sadness feel heavier. It's a feedback loop. Body and mind deeply connected.
We see the author getting permission to go out, but just having no desire, feeling heavy, weighed down. That inertia, that's a powerful picture of emotional burden.
It really is, that lack of motivation, the feeling of just being unable to move or act. It's a classic sign of significant emotional distress. That heavy feeling, it's both literal and metaphorical, isn't it?
Yeah.
It shows how deeply our emotions can drain our energy, our will to engage.
So medication's taken for the toothache, a small attempt to fix something, but then, bam, a phone call. Devastating news about a loved one's relationship. And the reaction is immediate, physical, numbness, trembling, feeling like nothing matters. How can news hit that hard?
News that shakes up our core relationships can trigger a massive physiological response. The shock causes the numbness, the distress causes the trembling, the racing heart, the disorientation. And that feeling of meaninglessness, it shows just how much our sense of purpose is tied to those key connections.
The aftermath is just, you can feel it.
Yeah.
Disbelief, this must be a joke, but also these intense expressions of affection, dependence. It's a real whirlwind.
That denial, the disbelief, it's often the mind's first line of defense against overwhelming pain, right? And clinging to the affection, the dependence, that highlights how central that bond was. It's a natural scramble to hold on to what felt real, struggling against this new awful reality.
And physically, wanting to cry but being unable to, like being emotionally frozen. What's going on there?
Sometimes the system just gets overloaded. Intense emotion floods everything, and paradoxically, it can lead to a kind of shutdown. Not being able to cry, even when you feel you need to, can be a sign of deep shock, or maybe the feelings are just too overwhelming to even let out. The channels feel blocked.
Then, a sudden decision.
Yeah.
Travel. A frantic trip to get answers.
Wow.
And what drives that kind of impulsive move when you're heartbroken?
It often comes from this desperate need to do something, to regain a tiny bit of control maybe, or to confront the source of the pain directly.
Get clarity.
Exactly. A need for answers, something to help make sense of it all. And sometimes it's just about escaping the immediate environment, the place where the hurt happened, hoping distance brings some kind of relief or perspective.
But the confirmation comes.
Yeah.
And it's almost casual, which must add another layer of hurt, right? That casualness when your world is falling apart. Disbelief lingers.
Oh, absolutely. That casual delivery can feel like a complete invalidation of your intense emotional experience. It highlights this huge gap between your inner reality and how the world seems to be proceeding, making the isolation feel even worse.
Then navigating social stuff becomes incredibly hard.
Yeah.
Running into the person involved, their family,
Yeah.
it's just a constant painful reminder. How do people even cope with those moments?
It's so tough. Those encounters force you right back into the reality of the loss, the shift in the relationship. Trying to act normal is, well, it's a coping mechanism, but it takes enormous energy.
Yeah.
You're constantly trying to square the past you knew with this jarring present, all while feeling like you're falling apart inside.
And the failed attempts to connect, to talk, it just underscores the gap that's opened up. The past and present feel like they don't belong to the same story anymore. That must be so disorienting.
Totally disorienting. A major relationship shift fractures your personal narrative, your sense of who you are and where you fit. The shared past suddenly feels different, maybe unreal. Trying to piece together a new story moving forward, that's a huge part of healing, but it's never straightforward.
Seeking comfort from friends doesn't seem to work either. Even with friends, there's this disconnect, this numbness, feeling alone even when you're not physically alone.
Yeah.
That's rough.
It is. When the pain is really deep, it can feel like nobody really gets it, even people who care. That can lead to feeling cut off. And the numbness, well, and it might be protective in a way, shielding from more pain, but it also gets in the way of connecting and healing.
The internal monologue gets really intense. Feeling trapped inside your own head, asking those big, hard questions about life, relationships. It sounds like a mental prison.
It really can become one. When you're struggling, thoughts can just loop, often becoming negative or self-critical. You get stuck ruminating. And those huge existential questions, what does it all mean? They often surface when our foundations feel shaken. We're desperately trying to make sense of it all.
Letting go seems impossible. And there's this stark contrast between the deep pain inside and just superficial interactions outside. Keeping that mask up must be exhausting.
Incredibly exhausting. The sheer effort needed to present a normal face while battling that internal storm is immense. It really highlights how much can be going on beneath the surface for people, the struggles we don't see. Makes you think about empathy, doesn't it?
Yeah. There's this urge to escape reality, sleep, maybe other things, but it doesn't work. The thoughts keep coming back. Why is it so hard to just switch off feelings?
Because they're part of us, aren't they? Temporary distractions, they offer a brief pause, maybe, but they don't resolve anything. The underlying feelings, the unresolved issues, they just wait.
And come back stronger sometimes.
Often, yeah. Real healing means actually facing those feelings, processing them, not just trying to outrun them. Avoidance usually just delays the inevitable.
The focus widens out again to society, politics. There's this sense of disillusionment, corruption, inequality. How do personal troubles link up with those bigger societal concerns?
Well, our personal experiences often color how we see the bigger picture. Feeling personally vulnerable or experiencing unfairness can make you much more attuned to those same issues playing out on a larger scale.
Right.
It can lead to frustration, feeling powerless. It reminds you that the personal and the political, they're often tangled together.
The pain of feeling replaced, forgotten in a relationship, that keeps coming up, especially when faced with reminders of the past. Those reminders sound like triggers.
They absolutely are, like reopening a womb, seeing something, hearing something that reminds you of what was lost. It can unleash a flood of memories, emotions. And that feeling of being replaced, forgotten, it hits right at our core need to belong, to matter to others. That makes it especially painful.
But there are moments of finding some relief in routine, small comforts, like an anchor in the storm.
Yes, routine can be incredibly grounding when everything else feels chaotic. It gives structure, predictability, and small comforts, a cup of tea, a familiar activity. They offer these little pockets of temporary peace. They're not the whole solution, but they can be vital lifelines.
The writing really explores the complexities of love, attachment, all these conflicting emotions, desires. It shows how hard it is to navigate relationship. It feels like we're all just figuring it out as we go along, really.
That's such a human truth, isn't it? Love, attachment, they're messy, often irrational. We all bring our baggage, our histories, insecurities, hopes into relationships, and it creates this complex dance of feelings. There's definitely no instruction manual.
And the dreams described are vivid, disturbing, mirroring the inner turmoil. It blurs the line between waking life and subconscious thoughts. What's the role of dreams in processing all this?
Dreams are often where our subconscious chews on things. While we sleep, the mind processes emotions, anxieties, often in symbolic ways. Those disturbing dreams, they can be a direct reflection of unresolved stress or inner conflict from our waking hours.
Then moments of anger erupt, confrontation, outbursts of pain and frustration. Is that kind of thing ever necessary?
Well, expressing anger needs care, obviously, but anger itself can be a valid response to being hurt or feeling wronged. And confrontation, if it's done respectfully, can sometimes be essential for setting boundaries, saying what you need, maybe even finding a way forward. Bottling everything up isn't always healthy either.
Despite feeling so cut off, there's still this persistent longing for connection, for understanding. That basic human need just doesn't go away.
It really doesn't. It's so deeply wired into us. Even in the depths of isolation, that desire for empathy, for someone to get it, usually remains, pushing us to maybe try reaching out again despite the pain.
The difficulty of accepting loss, change, it's really clear. And the struggle to rebuild, find new meaning. That whole process, it's not a straight line, is it?
Not at all. It's usually messy, full of steps forward and steps back. Accepting loss, figuring out what life looks like now, finding meaning again. It takes time, patience. There's no schedule for grief. And finding that new balance is a deeply personal, often challenging journey.
And personal experiences keep getting linked back to broader social issues, commenting on norms, expectations. It's like our individual lives are always playing out against this larger social backdrop.
Exactly. Our personal stories are inevitably shaped by the culture, the society we live in, and sometimes our stories push back against those norms too. The author really highlights that interplay.
We also see spiritual or philosophical musings emerge, a search for meaning, for peace in the midst of it all. That's something many people can relate to, especially when things are tough.
It is. When you're facing pain, uncertainty, it's natural to look for deeper answers, a bigger perspective. Those reflections represent that quest for solace, for understanding that goes beyond the immediate hurt, trying to find some kind of peace.
And even with all the pain, there are these flashes of dark humor, sarcastic comments. Humor is a coping mechanism, even in dark times.
Oh, absolutely. Humor, even dark humor, can be incredibly resilient. It can give you a momentary break from the pain, offer a slightly different angle, and sometimes even create a weird sense of connection through shared absurdity or difficulty.
The themes of sleep, dreams, the unconscious, they keep looping back, underlining the inner turmoil. Sleep seems like both an escape and more work for the mind.
That's a great way to put it. The subconscious doesn't clock off. It keeps processing, sorting, dealing with stuff even when we're asleep. The focus on sleep and dreams in the text really highlights that ongoing internal grappling with emotions, even during rest.
And despite trying to push them down, the power of emotions is undeniable. That cycle of hope and then despair, it just keeps going. Healing isn't linear.
It really isn't. That up and down cycle is completely normal in healing. You have good days, maybe even good weeks, and then setbacks. Acknowledging that rhythm, being patient with yourself through it, that's crucial.
Towards the end, there are these little hints maybe of new beginnings, uncertain futures, thoughts about moving on, but it's all very ambiguous. That uncertainty, it can feel scary, but maybe hopeful too.
Exactly. Thinking about starting fresh brings possibility, but the what if, the unknown, that can definitely bring anxiety. It captures that tightrope walk between hope for something different and apprehension about what that might actually look like.
And that final recurring theme that really stands out is the contrast outward appearances versus inner reality. That constant struggle to match how you feel inside with how the world expects you to be, it feels universal.
It absolutely is. That gap, that tension between our private selves and our public faces, it's a core part of being human. The author's writing gives us such a raw, relatable window into that ongoing balancing act.
So wrapping up this deep dive into Passion for Print, we've really journeyed through a complex terrain relationships, intense emotions, societal observations, the search for meaning, all through this author's very unique perspective.
And it is fascinating how these incredibly personal notes touch on such universal human stuff. And the author's background, police officer, aspiring writer, it just adds this unexpected, insightful layer to how they see the world, the highs and lows.
Yeah, it's raw, it's personal, and it really does offer a powerful look at the human condition, the things that connect us all, the joys and the heartbreaks.
Definitely. And maybe it leaves us and you listening with a thought. What about your own passion for print? You know, your own inner world of thoughts, feelings, observations. What truths about your life, about the world might surface if you explored them with that kind of honesty? What stories are waiting inside you to be unpacked?